All right, let's get right into it. You might think Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness is just a story about a boat trip up a river, but it's so much more than that. It's really a deep dive, a psychological journey that peels back the thin layer of what we call civilization to ask a pretty scary question. What's really lurking at the core of the human soul? So, right from the get-go, the story just skewers this massive lie, this whole idea of the civilizing mission that European powers were pushing in Africa. It introduces us to a world that, on the surface, claims to be all noble and high-minded, but underneath, it's anything but. And this is where it gets really clever. Conrad describes the heart of the empire, Brussels, with this incredible metaphor. He calls it a white sepulchre. Now, what's that? Well, think of a tomb, all clean and white on the outside, looking pure and respectable. But inside, it's just full of death and rot. And that right there is the perfect image for a society that preaches morality while practicing some truly brutal exploitation behind the scenes. And this just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one hand, you have the official story, we're here to bring enlightenment, civilization. But the reality? The actual reason they were there? It was a brutal, greedy scramble for ivory, for pure profit. All that noble talk was just a cover story, a mask for conquest and greed that basically blew the lid off the whole morally bankrupt system. Okay, so let's follow the journey. As our narrator, Marlowe, takes his steamboat further and further into the African interior, something really fascinating starts to happen. See, the physical journey into the jungle is also a psychological one, taking him further and further away from the rules and structures of his so-called civilized world. And this is a core idea of the book. Conrad is basically saying that this thing we call civilization, it's an incredibly fragile mask. It's not that we're all naturally good people. Nope. It's the constant pressure of society. The police, the neighbors, everyone watching that keeps us in check. But what happens when you take all of that away? Well, that's when the real primal stuff starts to bubble up to the surface. And this is super important, so let's be clear. The jungle doesn't create the evil. The darkness was already there, inside the hearts of the men who went into it. The wilderness, it's more like a pressure cooker. It just strips away all the polite conditioning and reveals what was lurking underneath the whole time. Which brings us to the man at the center of it all, the enigma that is Mr. Kurtz. I mean, if you want a perfect example of this terrifying transformation, it's him. He is the ultimate case study in what happens when you take a supposedly civilized man and just remove all the limits. Just look at the two sides of this guy. On paper, Kurtz is the best of Europe, a genius, an artist, a brilliant speaker. He was supposed to be a force for good. But the reality? He becomes this monster, a ruthless tyrant who's worshipped like a god. For Marlowe, our narrator, seeing Kurtz is like looking into a really scary mirror. He sees his own potential for that same darkness. What we're witnessing with Kurtz is his soul just completely falling apart. The book says his soul went mad because, in total isolation, it was forced to actually look at itself and found nothing, just a big, empty void. You know who doesn't fall apart? Marlowe. And why? Because he focuses on his work, on fixing his steamboat. It's a pretty stark warning about what happens when your soul loses its anchor. So this all builds to the story's climax. Kurtz is dying, and in his last moments, he finally seems to confront the truth of what he's become and everything he's seen. And his final judgment on it all, it isn't shouted from the rooftops. It's just a whisper. Those are his famous last words. But what horror is he talking about? The terrible things he did? The darkness he found in his own soul? The hypocrisy of the whole colonial project? The thing is, Conrad never tells us. And honestly, that's the genius of it. The whole story is drenched in fog and moral uncertainty. Even language starts to fail. Kurtz's last words are so ambiguous because maybe, just maybe, the truth he saw is too profound, too awful to be neatly explained away. The story doesn't give you easy answers. It forces you, the reader, to sit with that terrifying confusion. So by the end of this whole journey, the focus really shifts. It's not just about the Belgian Congo anymore, or even about the character of Kurtz. It becomes a much bigger, much more universal question about the nature of humanity itself. And this is the ultimate question the book leaves us with. After everything Marlowe has seen and experienced, where does that darkness actually reside? And here is the chilling conclusion. The heart of darkness isn't some remote jungle you can point to on a map. It's the potential for evil that exists inside every single one of us. The greatest struggle isn't conquering the wild, but confronting the darkness inside our own souls. So the novella leaves us with this final, really personal thought. If civilization is just this superficial defense we build against the void within, what are the restraints, the laws, the work, the beliefs that keep you from looking into your own abyss? What keeps your darkness in check?